Welcome to episode 20 of Duties of the Heart, and in this episode we're going to be going through chapter 6 of the Gate of Reflection, and this is coming to the end of these 6 questions that were posed by Rabbi Bachya Ibn Pakuda, and the last question regarding the wisdom of creation and God's hand in creation and how we can meditate and admire it. And now he asks a question: what inhibits this reflection? What is connected with it? So he continues: I say that all the things that inhibit the acknowledgement of God's unity, which were mentioned in the first gate, also inhibit the reflection on creation and God's benevolence. In addition, there are 3 reasons why people fail to perceive God's graces, mentioned at the beginning of this gate. Another inhibiting factor is an arrogant attitude towards the Creator's favours. A foolish and ignorant person considers himself deserving of these, and of even more than these. He does not reflect on God's graces, nor does he recognize any obligation on his part to offer praise and thanks to the Creator for them. Of such a person, King Solomon said in Proverbs 16 verse 5, God detests every arrogant person. And we're also taught in many places, Rambam also urges us, or rather states, that God will not abide by anger or arrogance in a person. This is very important. Now Rabbi Bahya continues and describes man's related duties in serving God. He continues: among the things connected with this reflection is that one should recognize the favors God bestows upon him and assume the obligation of serving him which follows from such recognition. One should meditate constantly on the signs of the Creator's wisdom, never ceasing to ponder them and study them in light of all that one perceives with the senses and with the intellect. Without fail, one discovers a new trace of divine wisdom every day, as King David of blessed memory said in Psalms 19:3, day-to-day expression flows. So if you reach a point in your life where you are beginning to recognize God's hand in everything, it will become more apparent to you as each day passes, and you must study these signs that God is giving you and meditate on them, think about them, recall them, and analyze them. This is very important, because if God is offering you signs of himself, you should respect that. It's a great honor. And he will, without, as he says, without fail, one discovers a new trace of divine wisdom every day. In the next section, Rabbi Bahya discusses God's wisdom and power, how it transcends ours. So he continues: what you should be aware of when reading what I have called to your attention in this gate is that it is but a fraction of the many secrets of wisdom that you can arrive at through your own understanding, secrets which will be revealed to you when you purify your heart and refine your soul, and when you have reached the utmost of what you are capable of attaining to in these matters. You should realize that all you have understood of the Creator's wisdom and power as manifested in this world is as nothing compared to his real power and wisdom. For only what was necessary for man's sake has been made manifest, but not the full extent of his power, which is infinite. You should meditate upon his awesomeness and great power as they truly are, and not merely as you can conceive of them. So Rabbi Bachya is telling us, this guidebook is not just it's very powerful. It's not just a way of just something enjoyable to read. This makes a real difference to your life. When you take the time and effort and toil to refine your character, because it requires a lot of sacrifice. If you want to be closer to God, you have to sacrifice certain things. When you purify your heart and you refine your soul, it takes work and it takes time. And nothing happens overnight. And if you commit yourself to this, God will reward you with things that you can't even imagine. And he's reminding us of this, and also just reminding us that even though he may show signs of wonders and signs that are irrefutable, they are nothing compared to what he can do. So try not to just meditate on what you have experienced, but try to imagine what God is capable of in a much bigger way, to have a more realistic respect for him. And now Rabbi Bachya is going to give us a parable about a child born in a king's prison. So he continues, imagine yourself in this world to be like an infant that was born in the king's prison. The king had mercy on the infant and ordered that he be provided with everything that was good for him and that was needed for his welfare. The child grew up and became intelligent, but knew of nothing except the prison and what was inside it. The king's envoy visited him regularly and brought him all that he needed: a lamp, food, drink, and clothing. The envoy informed him that he was the servant of the king, that the prison and everything inside it, as well as all the food brought to him, belonged to the king, and that it was his duty to thank the king and praise him. The young man then said, I praise the owner of this prison, who has taken me as his servant, singled me out for all his bounties, and has watched over me and cared for me. The envoy said, do not say this lest you sin, for the king's domain is not limited to this prison. The broad expanses of his lands are infinitely larger than this prison. You are not his only servant. His servants are innumerable. The favours and kindnesses extended to you are nothing compared to those he has bestowed on others, and his providential care for you pales in comparison with his providential care for those besides you. The young man said, I know nothing of what you have mentioned. My understanding of the king is only according to what I have personally seen of his favour and power. The envoy said to him, say, I pray the supreme king, whose dominion has no bounds and whose goodness and kindness are without limit. Among the multitudes of his vast host I am of no account, and in the greatness of his power my affairs are as nothing. The young man finally understood what he had never understood before: the king's nature. The exalted stature of the king was grasped by his soul, and reverence for him filled his heart. The king's goodness and graces to him were magnified in his eyes, in light of the king's exalted stature and his own insignificance in the kingdom. The gifts the king had bestowed upon him seemed manifold. This is a very important parable, because as we know, God listens and watches and analyzes every single thought of ours. Every single action, he's watching us 24 hours a day, 24/7, 365 days a year. So it's normal for a human to wonder, how can he be concentrating on me continuously, without break? Because there's billions of other people in the world, and surely he must. You can't divide your attention if you are with someone constantly. But the nature of God is he's infinite, and he has infinite power. He has the ability to watch you permanently at all times and do the same with everybody else. So even though he may show you signs, you may get the indication that you are now a servant of God, but you are not the only servant of God. And he is reminding us to keep our humility. Do not become arrogant, because you can get get too big for your boots sometimes if you think you're the only one that God graces with his presence. So it's very important to keep humble and not have a trace of arrogance. Keep quiet and do God's work, and that is all you are here for. And he concludes this gate with a note to the reader, or the listener in your case. And he continues, my brother, meditate on this parable when you consider the sphere that encompasses the earth. For we cannot even understand what exists in the small valley of the earth, certainly not what exists in the whole of the earth or what is beyond the sphere. My brother, contemplate this parable and ponder it. Then think of the Creator, may He be exalted, as He truly is, and you will greatly appreciate the favors and the kindnesses He has bestowed upon you, watching over you providentially, together with all of His creatures. Regard His book, His commandments, and His statutes with reverence. Think of the great respect and admiration you have for a man more successful than yourself. The higher his position is compared with yours, and the less he stands in need of you, the more you appreciate his favors, the more you honor his requests and restrictions, the greater your effort and endeavor in his affairs. Understand and contemplate this, and with God's help you will succeed. May God in His mercy and kindness set us among those who are devoted to His service, who recognize His many different favors. Amen. The second gate is completed. I call out to God and He answers me. And that concludes this gate. And very, very powerful words, and a reminder that the highest office a human can achieve is to be considered a servant of God. And this is very true. So the next gate is the gate of serving God. So it'll be very interesting, and I look forward to that next episode.